My mom's fiancé stole all my college savings, and when I confronted them, my mom told me to stay quiet and said I should be grateful just to have a roof over my head. I refused to accept the injustice. I reported both of them to the police. Later, I discovered an even bigger shock. My father had left me a huge inheritance, and my family had been secretly using it without my knowledge. I still remember the moment I opened the box, the one my dad had made with his own hands. It was empty. Something inside my chest cracked. 4 years of work, 4 years of hope, all gone overnight. I stood in the corner of my room, staring blankly at the bottom of the wooden box, unable to scream or cry. My name was Amber. I was 17. I had lost my father when I was 7. After he died, my mother became cold and distant. She worked as a store manager and often made me feel like she regretted ever having a child. When Nick entered our lives, her new boyfriend, I wasn't surprised anymore. He was 10 years younger than her, cocky, jobless, always complaining about something. I endured it. I lived the best I could. After school, I worked different jobs, saving every penny, every dollar just to escape one day, to go to college and start a new life. Over 4 years, I managed to save nearly $7,000. All the money was hidden in that box, my little secret hope for the future. And now it was gone. I walked down to the kitchen, still trembling. "Where's my money?" My voice sounded foreign, strangled. Mom didn't even turn from the sink. She just tossed over her shoulder. "Nick took it. We needed it for the house." My head was buzzing. "Are you serious? That was my college money," I shouted. She waved her hand dismissively. "Enough. You should be grateful you even have a roof over your head." I wanted to smash everything around me. Nick lounged on the couch, glued to his phone like none of this concerned him. They didn't just steal my money, they stole my chance to get out of here, to run, to become something more than a ghost in this house. That evening, I realized for the first time how completely alone I was. Neither my mom, nor her new man, nor any relatives would stand up for me. And I promised myself I would get out anyway, no matter what. But now I would have to start from scratch. The empty box in my closet seemed to laugh at me. Everything I had was taken away, but my determination, they couldn't steal that. The new house smelled like fresh paint and cold betrayal. Boxes were still stacked in the hallway, but my box, the one that mattered, was gone, empty, erased. Mom and Nick moved through the house like victorious rulers, showing off polished floors and oversized windows. I walked behind them like a ghost. At the housewarming party, they laughed, toasted, and welcomed guests with fake smiles, as if they hadn't just destroyed my future. Nick made some lazy joke about new beginnings, and my mother giggled like a teenager. I stood near the doorway, arms crossed, feeling like I might suffocate. Not one person asked me why my eyes looked hollow. When I turned to my grandparents, Mom's parents, hoping for at least a hint of support, they smiled at me awkwardly, then turned away to compliment the kitchen cabinets. That cut deeper than I expected. They always pretended to be on my side growing up, whispering kind words when Mom's anger boiled over. But now, when it truly mattered, they abandoned me without hesitation. I wasn't even angry. I was just numb. Later that night, lying on my mattress on the floor of my new room, I stared at the cracks in the ceiling. I thought about the years spent working, babysitting, bussing tables, cleaning houses, every aching hour saved for something bigger than this life. And now it was gone, spent on granite countertops and cheap chandeliers. I realized then that no one was going to save me. Not my mom, not her useless boyfriend, not the grandparents who smiled politely and said nothing. I had no one. My hand hovered over my phone for a long time. I still had the numbers saved under Grandpa and Grandma, my father's parents. We hadn't spoken in years. After Dad died, they drifted away, like they couldn't bear to see me without him. I had resented them for it. Maybe I still did. But that night, something broke inside me. I pressed the call button. It rang once, twice. My heart beat so loud I barely heard the click when someone answered. "Amber?" Grandpa's voice crackled through the line, rough and hesitant. For a second, I couldn't speak. My throat locked up, and it felt like if I said anything, the years of silence would crush me. "It's me," I finally whispered. And then everything came spilling out. The missing money, the empty box, the house bought with my savings. I tried to keep my voice steady, but somewhere in the middle of it, I broke. I wasn't asking for pity. I just needed someone, anyone, to tell me I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed. Grandpa didn't interrupt. When I finished, there was a long, heavy pause. Then, quietly, he said words that didn't make sense at first. "Amber, your father left you a college fund." I sat up so fast I nearly dropped the phone. What are you talking about? Dad had died when I was 7. I remembered his hugs, his laugh, but never once did Mom mention anything about a fund. It was set aside for you, Grandpa said slowly, like he was choosing every word with care. Your mother. She was supposed to use it only for your education and well-being. It's in the documents. We have copies. My head spun. Years of working, saving, sacrificing, for nothing? I hadn't needed to clean bathrooms or haul trays or spend every birthday counting cash instead of wishes. Why didn't anyone tell me? I asked, voice cracking. Grandpa sighed. We thought it was too painful. After your dad died, we stayed away. It's not an excuse. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't know whether to scream or sob. My hands shook as Grandpa promised to send me photos of the papers. Proof. Hard proof. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, clutching my phone. Rage simmered under my skin, hot and electric. Mom hadn't just stolen my savings. She had stolen my future twice. Once, when she took Dad's love away with her coldness, and again when she pocketed what he had left to protect me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't ungrateful. I was robbed. And now I had proof. I opened a blank message to my best friend's dad, the police officer who had always said, "If you ever need help, you call me. No questions asked." My fingers hovered over the screen. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow I start fighting back. The day of the housewarming party felt like a funeral in disguise. Nick had strung up cheap lights in the backyard, and Mom baked cookies she would never let me touch as a kid. Guests started pouring in around sunset. Coworkers, neighbors, friends who barely knew us. I watched from the shadows near the stairs, heart hammering so hard I thought someone might hear it. In my pocket, tucked so tight it hurt, were the printed copies of the documents Grandpa had sent. Proof that this house, this party, this entire lie was built on money that was never theirs. I hadn't planned to act tonight. I thought I'd wait, be strategic. But standing there, seeing Mom laugh and brag about her new chapter, something inside me snapped. I texted Mr. Lewis, my best friend's father, the simple code we agreed on. Now. 20 minutes later, headlights sliced across the driveway. Mr. Lewis stepped out, dressed in uniform, followed by another officer and a man in a gray suit. The lawyer he promised would help me. I stayed frozen, watching as they walked up the front steps. The chatter inside died as the door opened. Amber Owens? The officer asked loudly. I raised my hand, my fingers trembling. We're here on your request? Mr. Lewis said, turning to the room. We have cause to investigate the misuse of a minor's trust fund. The room exploded into chaos. Nick jumped up, his face turning crimson. Mom rushed forward, sputtering denials. This is a misunderstanding. She's just upset, she cried. But it was too late. The officer stepped forward, reading their rights with cold, mechanical calm. The lawyer handed me a folder. My evidence. Around me, the guests gawked, mouths open, wine glasses forgotten. Some started whispering. Some left. I stood perfectly still, burning the scene into my memory. Nick shouting, Mom crying, the perfect party crumbling like wet paper. My mother shot me a look of pure hatred as they led her away in handcuffs. For a second, I thought I might cry. But I didn't. I just watched them go. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could win. I didn't sleep that night. The house, once buzzing with fake celebration, now echoed with a kind of silence that made my skin crawl. Empty wine glasses still littered the counters. The front door, slammed shut after the police left, seemed to breathe in the quiet. I packed my things slowly, not that I had much. A duffel bag of clothes, a few books, the wooden box Dad made, still empty but heavier now with meaning. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting Mom and Nick to burst through the door and scream at me, but they didn't. They were still in holding, at least for now. At sunrise, I grabbed my bag and walked out without looking back. I didn't slam the door. I didn't even lock it. Let the house rot. I had already called a cab the night before, and it pulled up just as I stepped outside. I slid into the back seat and gave the address I memorized like a prayer. My best friend's house. Her dad, Mr. Lewis, met me at the door. He didn't say much, just nodded and let me inside. They had set up a small room for me, a mattress on the floor, clean sheets, a lamp. I could have cried at how much that meant. For the first time in weeks, someone made space for me without asking anything in return. Over breakfast, toast and coffee I could barely stomach, we talked about the next steps. Mr. Lewis explained that Mom and Nick had posted bail and would likely be back home within a day or two. Staying there wasn't an option anymore. We'll fight this, he said. but we have to be smart. That afternoon, we met with a lawyer, a different one, not the one from the party. This one specialized in trust fund fraud. Together, we laid out a plan. First, a mediation meeting with Mom's side, then court if necessary. I felt hollowed out but determined. Sitting in that office, my knees bouncing uncontrollably, I made a silent promise to myself. No more begging for scraps. No more pretending this family was something it wasn't. If I wanted a future, I had to carve it out myself, one brutal step at a time. 2 days before the mediation meeting, I got an email that shattered what little steadiness I had left. It came from an unfamiliar address, but I knew the sender immediately. Mom. She had made a new account to get around the blocks I set everywhere. My hands trembled as I opened it. Short message, few lines, attached screenshots. I thought it was another desperate excuse, another lie. I was wrong. The screenshots were old emails, years old, between my mother, her boyfriend, and both sets of grandparents. As I scrolled, my heart sank lower with each word. It wasn't just Mom and Nick who had stolen from me. It was all of them. Every grandparent, every adult I thought might have loved me once had taken a piece of what Dad left for me. They had agreed, quietly, selfishly, to split the money. They spent it on vacations, renovations, debt payments. They joked about how I'd never know, how I was too young, too busy scraping together pennies after school to notice. I felt sick, nauseous. Betrayed didn't even begin to cover it. I had fought so hard to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone in my family had cared. But reading those emails ripped that illusion out by the roots. They never cared. Not enough. Not more than they cared about their own comfort. I sat on the floor, phone slipping from my fingers, staring at the ceiling like it might offer answers. How do you even start to process something like that? The only people you ever trusted had seen you not as a daughter or granddaughter, but as a walking wallet. I stayed like that for hours, empty and frozen, until Mr. Lewis knocked gently and asked if I was okay. I couldn't even answer. How could I explain to him that I had just learned I had no family left at all? Only enemies wearing familiar faces. Tomorrow was the meeting. Tomorrow, I would look them in the eyes and see strangers. The mediation room smelled like stale coffee and tension. I sat at one end of the long table, the lawyer beside me, Mr. Lewis just behind. Across from me sat Mom, Nick, and both sets of grandparents, all of them looking everywhere but at me. The mediator, a tired-looking woman with sharp eyes, called the meeting to order. Mom was the first to speak. Her voice wobbled with practiced emotion. "We never meant to hurt Amber," she said. "We used some of the money for her upbringing. It wasn't theft." I didn't flinch. I let her words fall flat. My lawyer slid the documents across the table. The trust fund terms Dad had set up, the emails Mom had foolishly preserved. "You weren't supposed to touch it," he said coldly. "Not without consent, not for personal use." Nick tried to jump in, but the mediator silenced him with a look. Then came the grandparents' turn. Their excuses were worse. "We thought it was for the family," Grandpa muttered. "We needed help," Grandma added. I stared at them, feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a heavy finality. These weren't my people anymore. They were just strangers who shared my blood. When the mediator asked about restitution, things got messy. Mom refused to accept full responsibility. She wanted to pay a fraction. The grandparents barely offered anything. Nick whined that he was broke. I didn't care about their excuses. I stood up, my voice steady. "You stole from me. You stole my future. And I will take it back." No one said a word. For the first time, they seemed to realize they weren't dealing with a scared kid anymore. I left the meeting with a clear mind. We would proceed to court. Let them squirm. Let them lie. I would fight not because I wanted revenge. That would be too easy. But because I deserved my life back. I would carve my own future from the wreckage they left behind. Even if it meant burning every bridge to get there. Leaving the mediation building, I felt lighter than I had in months. There was no going back now. Court was the next step, and it would be brutal, ugly, and slow. But I was ready. I knew it wouldn't fix everything. It wouldn't erase the years of being treated like an afterthought or the gnawing loneliness that still woke me up some nights. But it would be mine. My fight. My future. Mr. Lewis drove me back to his house in silence, respecting the storm churning inside me. I spent that night filling out applications for student loans, researching scholarships, anything that would get me to college without another handout. I wasn't going to wait for anyone to save me. Not anymore. A week later, I got the official acceptance letter from the university I had dreamed about for years. The smile that broke across my face felt strange, unused, like a door opening after being locked for too long. I cried, Messy, ugly tears. But they weren't just for the past. They were for the future, too. I packed up what little I owned. Mr. Lewis and his daughter helped me load it into a borrowed truck. When we pulled onto the highway, the old life, the house, the betrayal, the lies, shrank in the rearview mirror until it was just a dot on the horizon. College wasn't going to be easy. I would work part-time jobs, study late into the night, live on instant noodles if I had to. But every lecture, every exam, every exhausted morning would be a middle finger to the people who thought they could steal my life and get away with it. In time, the court case would come. Maybe I would win. Maybe I wouldn't. But they couldn't take anything else from me. Not anymore. As the miles stretched ahead, I leaned my forehead against the window, letting the hum of the engine drown out the last whispers of the past. For the first time in my life, the road ahead was mine alone, and I wasn't afraid.